Hello, America. Welcome to Monday. There's a lot to talk about. We've got communists in Cuba. I mean, that's not a new deal, but these are pink communists in Cuba, and it's just so arrogant. It's hard to understand how they even. I mean, they are so completely out of touch. It's hysterical to watch them. What's not really funny is what's going on with Iran. We have a lot of updates on that. Robert Mueller died over the weekend. A little disappointed in Trump's comments on that, but I can understand his point of view. I mean, I guess he thinks the guy completely wrecked his life, destroyed his family in his first term. So I kind of get that, but wish he would have handled it differently. ICE at airports, is that the way to go? I have no problem with that. I actually like Elon Musk's solution. We'll get to that here in just a second, because his solution points to the bigger problem in America. But I want to start with what happened this weekend with war. We'll do that here in 60 seconds. First, let me tell you about Rush tax resolution. We're now a month away from tax day. Yay! Don't you feel so patriotic? And you can feel the clock ticking. For some people, it's just another form to file. A lot of others, it's some heavier returns that you're not confident about, money you owe, or letters from the IRS that you haven't opened yet. That's a problem. That's a real problem. I know you know that, but it only gets worse. Penalties stack up, options narrow. What feels like a small problem starts taking up a lot more space in your life, and that's where Rush Tax comes in. Rush Tax Resolution, they deal with this every single day. Back taxes, complex filings, the IRS notices. They know how to step in, who to talk to, take control of the situation, and start moving you toward a real solution. When you mention my name, Rush will provide a free IRS transcript investigation. That's a service other firms typically charge about $500 for, and those firms won't even confirm that they can help you. You just pay the $500, and then we'll tell you if we can help you. Rush will tell you up front and for free, and they'll only take your case if they know they can help you. So get Rush Tax Attorney now. Protect yourself. Call 877-554-RUSH. It's 877-554-RUSH, or go to rushtaxresolution.com. All righty then. Why don't we start with the war? Because that one seems to be not doing well. And let's talk to Jason, bring him in, our military expert and chief researcher. I'm going to get to the Trump-Obama thing because this is just driving me out of my ever-loving mind. Going to get to that here in a second. But Jason, let's go over a few things that happened. First of all, the missile launch on Diego Garcia. That is not a short-range missile. That's a long-range missile. It's not an ICBM, but it's the next step below it, which validates, if I'm not mistaken, everything that Trump has been saying, that, they had longer range and were working on ICBMs and were close to it. And once they have an ICBM, you can launch a nuclear weapon at Los Angeles or New York. And that is the thing that every president said they can never, ever have that opportunity to do that. Looks like they were really close, does it not?
It does. So, I mean, if they were lying about this, it brings into the question, what else were they lying about? And I think the answer to that is probably, pretty much everything they were lying about. When we first saw news of this missile launch, this lands in the intermediate range ballistic missile category. And if they can target Diego Garcia about, let's say, like 4,000 kilometers away, they can also target multiple different countries in Europe. I mean, a lot of the map opens up on this. And there was what was reported as two different launches. One failed mid-flight. The other one was interdicted by U.S. anti-missile capability. So, I mean,
but you know that for sure?
I mean, it was reported as so I wouldn't say for sure, but that's what it sounded like is what happened. Okay. But that's definitely scary, and it definitely shows what they were building towards, and it also shows what the Obama administration's JCPOA did not even attempt to even look at. And this is what we were screaming about at the time. You're not talking about their missile capability. They're not talking about their proxies. None of that stuff. No, let's give billions of them in pallets and billions in unfrozen assets and allow them to continue to do this. This was why it was so horrible. Okay,
let me take this on here while we're here. So let me just talk about this deal, because the The press is trying to sell you an old movie in a new box. It's an old movie, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They look at Trump, they look at Iran, they see the word deal, and they say, well, there's something that Obama did. He did a deal. Oh, my gosh, you guys are so incredibly... You are lazier than Congress and more dishonest than Congress. And on something this dangerous, dishonesty is not a minor sin here. This is how you get to catastrophe, with a smile on your face. Obama's deal was built on a single enormous concession. Iran could keep all of the machinery. It could keep all of the know-how. It could keep the enrichment program, but we have limits. 3.7% enrichment. That's it. 300 kilograms. That's it. Okay. So none of the plants were erased or destroyed or reduced or demolished. None of it. Okay. And sanctions were lifted in exchange for restraint and monitoring. That was the architecture. Now, everyone can argue whether it bought us time or sold out the future. We can argue about that. But let's at least call it by its proper name. It was a deal that accepted an Iranian nuclear program and then tried to place it in a box. That's not what Trump is doing. Everybody is saying Trump's deal is just like the Obama deal. It's nothing like it. Trump's publicly stated position is very different. No enrichment, not low enrichment, no enrichment. No symbolic enrichment, not a little enrichment for peaceful purposes. I don't even know if they can have enriched flour. No enrichment. Marco Rubio said to Iran, you have to abandon enrichment, abandon long-range missile development, stop sponsoring terrorists, stop helping the Houthis, and open the facilities to American inspection. Okay. When the envoy was there, he said, America can't even allow 1% of enrichment capability. Dismantle these nuclear plants, blah, blah, blah. This is not a touch-up of Obama's framework. This is a rejection of Obama's entire premise. And this is the part that the media just glides by, because it ruins the slogan. It ruins the story for them. Iran didn't meet any of those conditions. They didn't meet them in secret. They didn't meet them in public. They didn't meet them on the record. They didn't meet them. In 2025, it was announced that Iran had not agreed to inspections and had not agreed to stop enriching uranium. Iran's own side said enrichment's going to continue. We love enrichment, except for our people. Reuters reported that the American red line was zero enrichment. Reuters also reported Tehran said zero enrichment was a non-starter. That's not a signed peace. That's a collision course. If you look at where everybody stood in 2026, the IAEA, according to the AP, Iran still had a stockpile of uranium enriched up to 60%. Remember 3.6 or whatever it was? That's way above that, way above. And the agency still wasn't getting any access it needed. The E3 told the IAEA, the board, that Iran had already been found non-compliant with its safeguard obligations in June 2025. So if you want to pretend the two approaches are cousins, meet reality, okay? She's here to break up your love affair. The public evidence shows Iran had not accepted Trump's core demands. It had not stopped the enrichment. It had not delivered the transparency that, the Obama deal promised, and it matters because, words matter, Prison with bars is not the same as a demolition site. A leash is not the same as disarmament. Cap, not the same as surrender. Obama's arrangement said you can keep the program and you can still run it, but just under supervision. Trump's not saying that. Trump's stated position, all of the teeth have to be pulled from this. These are not identical philosophies. They're not even kissing cousins. They're opposite answers to the same question. And the press knows this, at least it should, but admitting it would force a more serious conversation. It would mean admitting that the issue was never merely whether there would be a deal. The issue was what kind of deal, what terms, with what enforcement. Did Iran actually do anything that, we flew them a pallet full of cash That's the ball game, gang. But the press just says, that's just Obama all over again. Yeah. Yeah, well, if you're stupid, you think it is. No offense to stupid people. But, there's a lot of stupid people out there who just don't know how to, don't know how to Google Obama's, deal, Trump's deal, and see the difference, So, not the same deal. One was an effort to manage the threat, and the other was to uproot much of the threat as possible. So, while we are, I'm not pleased with the way things are going. This is not the same deal as Obama. Now, let me get back to what is happening, what I'm not pleased about. We had the Diego Garcia. Again, that is evidence that they weren't doing the Obama deal. Now, Trump said, you have until 5 o'clock today, or we begin to take out your power plants. That's a really scary thing. And he just came out this morning and said, okay, we're not going to do it today. We're going to give you 5 more days in the spirit of negotiation. Taking out the power plants, I mean, that cripples the whole nation, which is something he's trying not to do. But, these are nuclear power plants. I mean, I don't know if that's the best. Jason, what are your thoughts on taking out the power plants?
I got to tell you, Glenn, I this weekend, I don't know if I'm alone on this, but some of the first uneasy thoughts I've had about this entire war and where it's headed towards. And my first thought when the president made that threat was, it sounds kind of desperate. It sounds like it might be one of the president's only options, but I see those only options dwindling down the further we get into this. And if that happens, then you're looking at a lot more civilian targets open up from the Iranian side if they're able to strike back. So it's very possible that we've degraded them so far that they're just spitting empty threats. But if it's not, then it's very, very escalatory for sure.
Is it true that we are not able to rearm some of our allies in the Middle East with the missile systems that they need?
I would say that's not true that we are not able to. I'm sure there will be some delays, but yeah, even if there are delays, then that's worrisome because that's more opportunities.
Why are there delays?
I mean, there's usually in advanced. I can't remember the exact figures, but in a very active attack like what's happening now, where they're hitting so many targets. I can't remember, it's thousands. I think the last I saw was like 8,000 targets or something like that. But in that scale, you typically have around 8 to 14 days of being able to keep up that scale of attack. After that, then you have to. There's supply chain factors that come into it. So you have to wait for more supply to get there, more arms, all that stuff. So if they're getting to that point, then yes, there would be some delays. But I'm not in the logistics planning. I don't know how long they're looking at this. They may have way more than that. But this is going off of years ago experience that I used to have with this. But yeah. So, go ahead. I was just going to say that if they're looking at, if Iran does have the capability to strike back if they see that now more civilian targets are open for attack, that gets pretty scary. Then that limits the president's options after that. If that does happen, then what else is left beyond some kind of limited ground invasion? How long before that limited ground invasion goes to a scaled up, ground invasion? These are the things I do not want to see, and why I'm starting to get a little bit that uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach where I don't like where this is going.
So Iran said, when we said we will hit their nuclear power plants, Iran countered and said, fine, then we're going to hit water and power plants in the Middle East, which then triggered the Middle East to write sternly worded letters. But this is the closest I've ever seen Saudi Arabia, Egypt, UAE, even Qatar getting involved in saying, you know what? We don't want to be in the history books saying we backed America and Israel on this, but we're about to get involved. And Trump is like, no, don't get involved, don't get involved, don't get involved. What does that tell you? Let me stop for 60 seconds. You come back and tell me what all that means. First, let me tell you about Relief Factor. If you're tired of waking up every day feeling like you just went 12 rounds in the boxing rings and you lost every single round, not because you did anything crazy the day before, but because your body just doesn't bounce back the way it used to. A lot of people have accepted that. They say this is just what getting older feels like, so they push through it. They work around it and, hope it doesn't get any worse, but it doesn't have to be that way. Relief Factor is a way that you could possibly get a lot of your life back. It's a drug-free supplement that was created to help your body respond differently to everyday aches and pains, supports your natural response to inflammation. It just helps your body do what it's supposed to do. And here's what really matters. The reason why I say, it could do this, it's possible that it'll do this, is because it works for about 70% of the people. Over 1 million people have tried it, and over 70% of them are taking it every day because it worked for them. I'm one of them. But try it for 3 weeks. Take their 3-week quick start. Just if it doesn't work for you in 3 weeks, it's probably not going to work. But take it as directed, and take it and watch what happens to your body. It's working for over 70% of the people. It might change your life. ReliefFactor.com. ReliefFactor.com. $19.95. 3-week quick start. 1-800-4-RELIEF. 1-800, the number 4-RELIEF. ReliefFactor.com. 10 seconds. Station ID. I have some pushback Ricky's going to give us here in a second. But first, tell us what it means, Jason, with the rest of the Middle East. Because that, on the surface, that feels like good news because, see, it's not us and Israel. It's the entire Middle East is getting involved. They've had enough of Iran.
Well, I think that would be amazing if the Middle East, for once, decided that they were going to take care of their own backyard instead of relying on us to do it. The problem is they just historically have never been able to do that or never been willing to do that. They are kind of had the same, I guess, mindset as Europe did with us protecting all of Europe from the Soviet Union and then Russia. They're fine with us spending all of our, bodies and, equipment and dollars so that they can spend all of that money doing social programs and doing all that other stupid stuff that they do. Now, the Middle East is very similar. They're fine with us protecting all of their interests, but when it actually comes to the nuts and bolts of securing their own backyard, they very rarely do it. So when you see a, joint statement, a sternly worded letter, that usually amounts to public support for whatever we're doing to protect them, but rarely their own means of providing that protection for themselves. So we'll see if that's still the case.
Now. Right. They're talking about it now, enough to where Trump is saying, no, let's... Why would Trump be saying, let's not get you involved?
The Gulf Arab nations not getting involved?
Yes.
I don't know unless he just wants to maintain control and be the one that is primarily in charge of what's going on here. I'm not sure. Maybe there would be a power struggle with who actually does A, B, and C and securing the Straits of Hormuz. I don't really know, but I think the best case scenario for this would be a united front. Maybe in the form of like the Abraham Accords, something that includes Israel with the Gulf Arab nations, but being the they would be the primary, executors of
Guarantor.
The security. Yeah, exactly. That would be the best case scenario.
I love that. All right, some pushback. This comes from Mark
Victor Davis.
Yeah,
Hansen,
Victor Davis Hansen,
noted historian at Stanford, whose expertise is on military history. Jason, he gives a bit of a white pill. And he predicts that Iran will fall in 2, 3, 4 weeks if we see this continued pressure through. How do you respond to that?
I see no indication of that on the ground unless he knows something that I just clearly don't. I've been watching geopolitical analysts look at this, and they're looking at more of like a 6 to 12 month campaign if something does not address the security forces on the ground in Iran, and we have not really seen that yet. So if something were to happen to where this would be done in 2 to 3 weeks, we're talking about a major escalation. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just it's something that I'm not seeing, and I don't think anybody else is seeing right now either. So I hope he's right.
we're going after the IRGC, right?
I mean, yes, leadership, things like that, but security forces primarily are still intact on the ground.
I wonder why we're not taking care of that, or does that you think that all has to be done by ground troops? Because that would be a disaster.
That would be a disaster. That's what they're looking at now for sure.
Okay, well, good thing we have Lindsey Graham on the job because he said that we fought at Iwo Jima. We can fight this. Do you know how many people we lost in Iwo Jima? Lindsey? My God. Why don't I, you know what? I'm going to put a uniform and some boots on you. You go down. You go down and fight this war, Lindsey Graham. All right, let me tell you about my Patriot Supply. Why do you set an alarm clock before you go to sleep? Right? So you can wake up on time. Simple. You made the decision ahead of time that, in the future, if you're going to tame it, you got to have a little help. You're taking care of it before it becomes a problem, and you're sleeping in. Well, consider this your alarm clock for preparedness, because when something goes wrong, whether it's a power outage, a storm, or something bigger, you may not get a warning week in advance. Did you see that only, I think it's 50% of the American people, or sorry, Republicans trust the power grid, and in the 40% range trust the power grid? So what are you doing besides just saying, I don't trust it? Get ahead of the problems before they start. That's why My Patriot Supply exists. So all you have to do, get reliable emergency food, practical gear, things you'll actually be glad you have if the lights go out. Now is the time. PrepareWithGlenn.com. Find a limited time offer. It's ready for you. Whatever is coming your way, it'll be ready. You'll be ready. PrepareWithGlenn.com. See their preparedness special offer. PrepareWithGlenn.com. Go there now.
Glenn's take on American Idol is heating up. Help crown the voices who will belt it out live at Ellis Island. But you got to be a Torch Insider to cast your vote at glennbeck.com/contest.
Welcome back to the Torch Insider Show. I am Jason Buttrell. I'm going to get back to some of your comments here in a little bit. I want to point out this. Let me see if I can find it first. There was, I guess, a leaked plan. I don't even know if this is even accurate. This is probably, this could very well not be accurate, but it was starting to float around social media over the weekend on potential negotiations that were being talked about between the Iranians and us. And Matt, put this up on screen. So this was, I think it was from Axios, some of the things that the United States was proposing to do to put an end to this. Now, they were saying that, I mean, and think about this in terms of like Obama's JCPOA. Glenn will probably go into this a little bit later. But just for a primer, so you see this before he talks about it. If this is true at all, this is what the Trump administration, if true, was proposing. No missile program for 5 years, zero uranium enrichment, decommissioning of nuclear reactors, arms control treaties with regional countries, no financing for regional proxies, and strict outside observation protocols around the creation and use of centrifuges. So I'm going to let Glenn go into this further and see if this is in any way like the Obama administration's JCPOA, because that was actually a debate on social media over the weekend. But if this is true, would anyone supporting what's happening right now in Iran, would we be satisfied with this? Would anything outside regime change, would we be satisfied with it? I don't think the Iranians would ever agree to this. So I think this is kind of one of those, I guess, diplomatic covers to say, see, we're trying everything we can, but they're just not giving in. That's personally what I think this is. If true at all, that's what I would think this would be. But I kind of feel like no one would be, if we've gone this far, I kind of feel like no one would be happy with that. The problem is, let me go over to, so Johnny Quest. Johnny Quest said, from Jefferson County, Idaho, said, unfortunately, I don't see this ending without some type of boots on the ground situation. Johnny, I at this point, I'm starting to agree with you. I was actually looking for what the Crown Prince told Glenn in an interview about the Iranian people, being the ground troops of this. I was expecting to see more movement on that, and I have not seen anything like that. So this feels like it's going further and further to what Johnny Quest is worrying about, some type of ground troops being involved. And that's something I do not want to see. So we'll see. Maybe what Rockstar Ricky pointed out from Victor David Hansen, maybe he's correct. Maybe he does. Maybe he's seeing something that multiple people that are analysts are looking at this are not seeing. If he is, that is awesome, and I hope that that's the case. But we'll see. Mark Live, how can we believe any intelligence regarding Iran's progress toward nuclear weapons when there is so much conflicting reports on Iran's progress? I know, Mark. We have been lied to repeatedly in these cases. We were lied to in Iraq. And even if I don't know, we were lied to in Iraq, let's just say it. We were lied to during the Obama JCPOA agreements. Ben Rhodes with Obama, their entire job Ben Rhodes' entire job pretty much was just to lie to the media and the American public to say this is what we need to get done because they were chasing a legacy piece of, foreign policy. That's it. And by and large, they unleashed what we're seeing, all the chaos that ended up following afterwards in the Middle East. I mean, you can attribute the rise of ISIS. You can attribute the Houthis in Yemen, all this. You can attribute all of that to the chaos that Iran unleashed, and now the need to go in and do what we're doing now, all based off of lies and manipulations. So I can't really answer that question. I don't know how we can trust it. I mean, I don't know if it's just because it's a different administration. So, and we put a lot of faith and trust in President Trump to do what he's doing, but I think that we need to be very, very aware that this could go to down an avenue that we do not want it to go down. And there was let me point out there was another comment. Oh, from Blackbird. Blackbird said, "Remember, eventually the Antichrist will rise." And I'm saying that with a smile just because that's the only facial expression I can muster right now, but Blackbird is exactly correct. This could be that battle. I don't know, but I'm going to be hopeful that this can go the way of, like Victor David Hansen said. And I don't know if you heard Glenn in the echo there or in the background, but something on this is coming up from Glenn in this next half hour, and you're not going to want to miss it. I heard some of this in the radio meeting this morning, and it's a very, very, very big, I guess, focus on how we should all be viewing this through. The lens that we should be viewing this through. That is coming up from Glenn right now, putting this all into perspective. I wanted to give you a sneak preview of one of the singers that we have in our contest. Someone asked about the singers, the May 2nd auditions. Those are live right now, so you can go and vote to them right now. I'm going to give you a preview of one of those, which is amazing, coming up soon. But what's Glenn going to say? That lens coming up now.
Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. So all weekend, the Dow Jones it was taking a bath, and it was the worst week ever. And today, the Dow Jones is up almost 700 points. Why? Because Trump just said things are going well in Iran. Can we not be the Dow Jones? Can we not be whatever the latest is on what somebody has just said to make us feel really, really bad or really, really good? You don't want to be like that. That just leads to absolute disaster because nobody has any idea. We are so confused right now. And that is part of this age, confusion and chaos, and spit yourself out of that system. If you are feeling confused and chaotic, find the things that make you feel anchored. And don't avoid what's going on. As you will understand, next hour I'm going to be talking about something that is really, the top three things probably I've ever had to say on broadcast. In reality, number one thing I've ever had to say on broadcast, but you'll understand when I get there. You need to listen to next hour. But without any kind of despair or lies in your life. You just have to know what the truth is, and then just keep pushing forward on the truth. I was just talking about Lindsey Graham and what he said over the weekend. This guy has never met a war he doesn't like. I want you to listen to Lindsey Graham, what he just said.
Here's what I tell President Trump. Keep it up for a few more weeks. Take Carg Island, where all of the resources they have to produce oil. Control that island. Let this regime die on a vine.
Is this going to, though, take Carg Island? Is it going to involve U.S. troops on the ground? Let me just read you something from The Atlantic. Does an assessment on that. They say U.S. troops may well take Carg Island. We believe their ability to do so, but only to endure ballistic missile strikes, drone attacks, petrochemical smoke, all without a reliable means of obtaining logistical support.
This has been an amazing military operation. God bless the fallen.
But it's a difference when we talk about troops on the ground.
I trust the Marines. Not that guy. I trust DOD. We got 2 Marine expeditionary units sailing to this island. We did Iwo Jima. We can do this.
Okay, Iwo Jima, not a good example. Why? It was a slaughter. It was a meat grinder. We lost so many people in Iwo Jima. If you're willing to do that, okay, then we have to have a different kind of conversation with the American people. Because the American people do not have the stomach for a meat grinder. They don't really even understand what the objective is at this point. We've been promised this is going to be a short-lived thing. We're not going to have ground troops, et cetera, et cetera. Then you throw in Iwo Jima? No. But let me show you how easy it is to get lost on this. Here's Lindsey Graham saying, the guy has never met a war he doesn't like. And we should do this. We should do this. We should do this. I am saying we don't have a choice now. Whether you like it or not, we don't have a choice. We have to fight this to win this. I don't know what that means. And if you're talking about ground troops, that's a whole different conversation. But you could listen to this and say, well, Glenn Beck's saying the same thing that Lindsey Graham is saying. No, we're not. No, we're not. Same thing could be said. A little while ago, I was saying this is becoming very, very concerning, and we are in trouble, I think, and we just have to be very, very careful. Now, you could listen to that and say Glenn Beck is against this war, just like Joe Kent is. Well, no, I'm not saying the same thing that Joe Kent is. Joe Kent is against the war and says this could be very, very bad. Glenn Beck is saying, I don't know about this war. I trust the president. I trust our military, but I'm very nervous about it. But if we're going to go deeper into it, that changes the ball game here. I need to hear more from the president of the United States. Similar, maybe. But what Joe does is he goes further. This is how you get lost. Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story about a ship. It's in New York Harbor, and it's got a 100-day crossing. It's going to take 100 days to go to England, and it's planning on docking in England. And everybody is ready to go to England. They're all very excited, but none of them really know how to read the stars, They trust the compass and a few charts, but they're not sure of the compass, how that really works either. But the word is, who's ever at the wheel, just hold her steady. Just hold her steady. Okay. London that way. Few degrees here and there won't matter, right? Well, let's just say that every day the ship runs on the old tradition of 4-hour watches. So somebody's got the helm. That's 6 times a day, 24 hours. The helmsman's change. And each time a new man takes the wheel, something small happens. Okay. The first helmsman, he's tired from the night before. So he just swings it 1 degree too far south. Close enough. Okay. No one's going to notice a single degree on a ship this big. He's not wicked. He's not just lazy. He might be tired that hour. Next guy comes in, glances at the compass, thought the previous course looks right enough, but, he's off by a degree. This time it's just easier on his shoulders because he's sore, he was working out, Third man, distracted by a story he was telling, drifted another degree. And so it goes on night after night, watch after watch. Not one of them choosing the wrong course. Not one of them saying, all of them believing we're going to London. But just a tiny misjudgment. Not wrong, just not right. Almost right by 1 degree. 1 degree at a time. Well, by the end of the first week, the ship is now 10 degrees off course. No one noticed. Sea looks the same. Wind still feeling the sails. Daily log steady as she goes. Second week, the drift is now 20 degrees. Officers shrug. We'll correct it tomorrow. Well, tomorrow never comes. The mathematics of the sea, merciless. Same with the air. Same with life. London, initially, 51 degrees from New York. Florida, a sunny beach, 201 degrees. The difference is 150 degrees. At 1 degree of error per watch, 6 watches a day, the ship needed 150 shifts to swing from London all the way around going to Florida. The 25th day, the helmsman on the day watch feels the wheel answer strangely. It's a little light in his hands. He checks the compass. He kind of blinks. The card shows 201 degrees. Dead on for Miami. The ship is no longer almost headed for London. It's headed for Florida. The coast of England is now behind them and to the north. The coast of Florida is somewhere just over the southern horizon and drawing nearer every time. How did it happen? How did this happen? Imagine being the captain. Well, how did it happen? Nobody really failed. There wasn't one failure of one guy. No one had mutinied. No great storm had blown them off course. Just 1,000 tiny decisions, each one easy, each one smaller, each one almost right until they were headed towards Miami. That's life. You're going to hear from a lot of people, including me, that might be almost right. In your life, we must be correct. For your course, you must be correct. What is your compass? What is the thing that you check every day and go, am I on course? Because I have news for you. Social media is going to take you 1 to 10 degrees off course. But you could do it every day, and it's just a fraction of a degree off course every day because of social media. You could get so wrapped up in your worry of war and politics and everything else that could take you a fraction of a degree to 20 degrees off course. You could start listening to somebody like me. I use me as an example. And you're like, yeah, that guy's right. But you're not listening entirely to everything that I say. And so if you're just blindly following, you're like, well, but I agree with him. But I might be headed in a place where you don't want to go. We have to be very, very, very careful on the influences in our life. We have to be much more discerning on everything that we do. And life is about to change. And we all need to be aware that we are in charge of our course and setting it every day, and be aware of the little things. My shoulders hurt, so I'm just going to let it drift a degree. Everything we do has a consequence, and we don't notice it until we're headed towards, well, this sounds like a good thing, till we're headed towards Miami and not to London. We don't notice it until it is way off course. Just be careful. The little decisions matter. Life, like the sea, keeps exact and perfect arithmetic. Let me tell you about our sponsor. It's Preborn. What if you could see something that most people never get to see? A heartbeat. Just weeks into a life that was just beginning. For a mom facing an unplanned pregnancy, that moment can change everything. That is a huge course correction, okay? Something that feels scary, uncertain, overwhelming. An ultrasound will make it real. But here's the problem. A lot of women never get that moment. They don't have access to a place that will slow things down and offer support, and then let her see what's actually there. That's what Preborn does. They provide free ultrasounds to women in crisis pregnancies. They give them a chance to see their baby, hear the heartbeat, and make a fully informed decision about what comes next. They're in the highest abortion areas, and usually they try to be almost next door to Planned Parenthood. Give the woman a choice that might be coming to Planned Parenthood and go, I'm going to try this one. Because what she finds inside is completely different. $28 provides one ultrasound. $140 helps 5 mothers, and every dollar saves babies and shares hope. Donate now. Be a part of this. Pound 250, say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, keyword baby, or go to preborn.com/Beck. That's preborn.com/Beck, sponsored by Preborn.
Faith, family, a full work day. That's not fascist. That's just Tuesday. More Glenn Beck straight ahead.
Welcome back to the Torch Insider Show. I am Jason Buttrell. Thank you for being with the Torch today. There is a lot that we need to discuss, a lot that we need to go into further in depth on. If you're not subscribed to the Torch, what are you doing? If you're on Facebook, X, Twitter, wherever, you need to get over there to glennbeck.com/torch and subscribe. You're going to be able to vote. I'm going to, in our contest that's coming up, the Singers Contest, somebody asked earlier, and I think I didn't copy down the comment, but they asked where you can go to vote. And you can go to glennbeck.com/contest and vote for the singers. I'm going to give you one. Oh my gosh. I'm going to give you one. I'm going to play one of the singers. Phenomenal. Just insane. I'm going to give you a sneak peek of that at the top of the hour. But also, I want to let's wrap up. Glenn might be moving on to other topics because there's just way too much to get to today. But let's just wrap up what we're looking at in terms of Iran and what's been happening. So on Friday, the president gave an ultimatum to Iran and said that if they did not open up the Straits of Hormuz, he was going to do military strikes on Iranian power energy plants and he was going to do that. I think he gave 48 hours from a point on Friday. That 48 hours would have ran out today around 6 p.m. Well, the Iranians responded and said, well, if that happens, Matt, throw this up, said if that happens, they were going to respond by hitting multiple different civilian targets, which would include power plants, fuel energy, water, desalination plants that many of the countries in the Gulf kingdoms rely on for water. It sounded pretty catastrophic if Iran could do what they said they could do in retaliation. I don't know what happened in between all of that going on, but I was looking at Matt, take my notes off for a second. I was looking at someone. Oh, it was Mark W. Mark W. Commented in the insider chat here, said just turned on CNBC and the headline banner reads stock surge, oil tumbles, and President Trump says postponing Iranian strikes pending talks. And he said, what talks? I think that what they're talking about are these negotiations that I showed you earlier in a couple segments ago. That's what I think those talks he's talking about. But whatever happened, whatever back and forth, the president delayed those strikes for 5 days and said, we're having good and productive conversations. That was a quote. Very good and productive conversations. So he delayed those power plant strikes. And if we targeted Iran's power plants, that would probably be catastrophic for many of the civilians that are on the ground as well. And the civilians are what we're hoping will be the ground troops to start rising up as soon as they're given the go-ahead. And I'll go further into that, I believe, at the top of the hour, because I think I only have 50 seconds here left. But I have always believed that was the eventual goal, was to get towards the people of Iran rising up and overthrowing, as the ground element, overthrowing the regime. That has always been what I thought the entire point was for the air campaign. And if it ends up not being that, I'm probably going to be upset about it, because I don't want to see American ground troops. My mind could be changed. It could be open if it's like a limited, operation. I don't really know. But I just do not want to see ground troops involved in this war. But anyway, we'll go further into that at the top of the hour, coming up in just a few seconds. But right now, Glenn ends up this hour, puts a bow on it right now.
I have to tell you, people have a hard time finding the truth. Well, here's one way you can find the truth. This is one detector, and it is not, you don't use this in a vacuum. You have to use this with other things as well. But one of the things that you look for is who is causing chaos. When chaos is involved, that's not from anything good. Chaos is never a good thing. For instance, look at the way we went into all of our previous wars. We've gone in creating chaos. We destroy absolutely everything. That causes chaos. You topple the regime, and then you have to try to piece it back together. Chaos is a very bad thing. So what is Trump doing on this war? Now, I'm not saying it's good, it's bad, it's going to work out. I'm just saying, look at the way he's gone into it. He is saying, no chaos on the ground. We are not going to bomb them back into the Stone Age. We are trying to just get things done and bomb enough to take away their ability to harm their neighbors, to harm Israel, and to harm us. And then hopefully there will be a regime change, but we'll work with it. The same thing he did where? The same thing he did in Venezuela. The same thing he's doing in Cuba. We're not going to bomb them into the Stone Age and then have to rebuild them, cause chaos. We're going to take measured steps, okay? What is happening with ICE? That is nothing but causing chaos. ICE, let me start there. ICE, who caused the chaos. Why is ICE having to go into our cities? Because somebody caused chaos and said, no border rules. And so we just let everybody in. And we didn't even know who they were. Total and complete chaos. So now Donald Trump comes in and says, we have to control the chaos. We have to get a handle on what is going on in our country, who is here, and we got to get the bad guys out. Okay? That's law and order. But the agents of chaos, what are they doing? To fight back, they fight out in the streets. They try to cause the chaos of ICE bad, Orange Man bad, Ice Man bad, and blurring the lines between what's legal and what's illegal. Now we have, because they were fighting ICE, somehow or another, TSA is involved in that, and they're not involved in that. The money for ICE has already been approved. And so what they decided to do is hold the money back from DHS. Well, DHS is what's protecting us. You have all these people inside that you don't know who they are. So now we're not able to watch domestically any terrorists that we might have here. But also, because you're not funding things like TSA, you now have what at the airport? It's not just long lines. It's chaos. Some airports that are run privately, they don't have a line. If you're not run privately, you have a giant line sometimes, and you never know. When you're going to the airport, you don't know. Could be 4 hours, could be no hours, could be 20 minutes, could be an hour and a half. You have no idea. That puts your life into chaos. It puts the airports into chaos. It puts the country into chaos. Why? What are they doing it for? I think I really, truly believe a lot of it is just to create chaos. At a time we need order, we need law, we need structure. What are the Democrats giving us every step of the way? Chaos. They are partnering with agents of chaos. They are partnering with socialist revolutionaries, with anarchy. That's chaos. This is an easy way for you to look at the news and say, am I on the right side or the wrong side? Look for chaos.
Welcome back to the Torch Insider Show. I'm Jason Porter. I'm going to continue this Iran discussion because there are a lot of your comments on it. And a lot of really, really good comments and bringing up more questions that we need to have answered. I'm probably not even going to have time in this segment, even though this is one of our longest segments of the day. I still want to play for you a preview of today's George AI. That's coming up. Again, pretty much reads or, if you read through this, like curriculum that you could use to teach the Federalist Papers. That's coming up. It's really cool. I can't wait to show you that. Also want to give you a sneak preview of one of our contestants. Well, I'll give you a few of those, I think, today if we have time. But I'm going to give, just in a few minutes, I'm going to give you a sneak preview of one of the contestants that has entered into the contest. And that voting is live right now. So glennbeck.com/contest. You can go and vote right now. But I really want to show you that because it blew me away. I was not expecting that. It just wild. But more on what's going on in Iran. So let me get out of that. So there were, we talked, I think it was Mark, one of the Marks. We were talking about some of these conversations that are happening. I think that's what the president called them, conversations with Iran. And there was a leak, or I don't even know if it was a leak, but if we're to believe it, this is what some people are suggesting are part of these conversations. Producer Matt, throw this up. So I read this to you earlier, but this was what they were saying was part of these conversations. So no missile program for 5 years, zero enrichment, decommissioning, concentrating on the missile program, and the proxies are a huge part that was missing from the Obama era, Ben Rhodes, JCPOA. And it's why it was so ridiculous also that led to, just chaos all over the Middle East. Well, there was actually a debate or a framing of this. This is one of the people. Who is this? This Travis Akers. I don't even know who this is. Former intel officer. But he said Trump is literally proposing the same exact plan that President Obama already had in place before Trump ended it. And that is completely false. That is completely false. The Obama JCPOA loosened restrictions on missiles. It allowed enrichment, didn't decommission nuclear reactors, didn't address Iran's malign regional behavior, didn't include anytime, anywhere inspections. It gave Iran the right to refuse and trigger a 24-day wait. And I was reading this from Philip Klein, who broke that down. He's at National Review. Anyone that actually has a head on their shoulders knows that this is nothing like the JCPOA under Obama. Nothing. And that's why we were so pissed off at it. We're like, wait a minute. Not only does this thing suck, it makes them more dangerous. It lets them spread way more influence. But they unlocked billions of dollars, including flights with pallets of over $1 billion in cash into Iran so that they could fund all the things that we were ticked off over that you didn't address, like missile development. And lo and behold, they fired an intermediate ballistic missile at Diego Garcia, the thing that they said they were not doing. And analysts were saying, the Trump administration's saying this, but they don't have this stuff. They're not working on it. Well, they just proved that they were. So if they were relying on that, what else were they relying on? Well, I think pretty much everything. And that's what makes conversations with